I actually have a fairly lengthy opening remarks. It was relative to a lot of the time issues that came up. Those in the TV audience can't necessarily see that we have a very few folks in attendance here, so I'm going to just provide highlights, understanding that the full comments will be included as part of the board highlights that go out tomorrow. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us at tonight's Board of Education meeting. As you can see from the agenda, we have many important topics to cover tonight. One that is at the forefront of students, staffs, and parents' minds, of course, are time schedules and calendars, both for the remainder of this year as well as moving into next year. Each year, the calendaring process is an iterative one. With collective bargaining, state audits, and other issues, this year's has been even more complex than usual. Although these changes are articulated in the memo under action item 6.4, I thought it'd be important to review a couple of the highlights that we've had several questions about. First and foremost, changes to the instructional day for each level was sent out to parents through a district communique a few weeks ago. If you missed it for any reason, please know that you can find this on the district's webpage. There have been some questions raised, such as compressed times between first and second bell at our elementary schools, which are being addressed at each school site. While we don't expect any further changes in the instructional day itself, you will likely be getting updates from your building principal about changes in practice related to student drop-off, school entrance in the morning, and the like. Because each school is so different in terms of the drop-off, whether it has busing or not, individual parent transportation kinds of issues, the practices are going to be slightly different in each of the schools, as we can imagine. And again, those will be coming out specifically from the schools as those get finalized. The kindergarten program, we did mention at the last time I spoke about this publicly, and this is where I'm beginning to paraphrase, that we hope to get through another year of having the shortened school day at the beginning of the year. However, we've gotten very clear direction from the state that's not something that's going to be permissible. So we will be having a full-day kindergarten program starting at the beginning of the school year next year. While the details are being continuing to be worked out, the value of that for our kindergarten teachers was both an opportunity to meet with families, but even more importantly than that, to be able to meet students and do some early assessment of school readiness in various content areas. And so we still want to, because we value those practices, that is going to be something that we're working into the schedule in some way, but it will not be at the expense of doing it as a full day program. Again, more of those details will be shared as they get finalized. The March Day conference days, they were spread over, we're referring to the K-2 parent-teacher conferences. They were on the first version of the calendar spread over 4 weeks because we had a superintendent's conference day, and the minimum number of required instructional days and hours prevent us from having more than one half day. And so that was the initial plan that we put out there. We'd already put the superintendent conference days on, and then we worked the conferences around them. But in looking at it again, it made more sense to keep those clustered together for 3 weeks and to simply move that superintendent conference day back a week to make sure that we were still meeting all the minimum requirements and again, providing some more consistency to those conference times. Freshman orientation is another issue that came up recently. We have gone from what people see on the calendar as 2 full days down to 1 full day. In reality, it only was a day and a half. The freshmen came in a day prior to the convocation and then a half day on the day of the convocation. As I spoke to Ken Bonamo about this, he reminded me that the half day has really been a sort of a mock schedule for the kids where they have an opportunity to walk through their schedules, at least have an opportunity to say hello to their teachers, all with the purpose of obviously building confidence that when the first day of school came, students knew where they were supposed to be and roughly when. Even though we're going to 1 day of a freshman orientation, that will still be incorporated in. The students will have tours. They'll still have an opportunity to meet several of their teachers before the school year, again, with our primary purpose here in making sure that students feel very confident and comfortable with where they're going to be during that first week as they're transitioning into the high school. And then finally, I want to hit on the last day of June. We had talked about the schedule would be determined, of course, obviously based on the number of snow days that we have this year, and then again, long-term planning for next year's calendar. We feel like we are safely past the window of having inclement weather, although tonight and tomorrow may prove differently with the heavy rainfall that's expected. We're not expecting any more snow for the remainder of the spring, so we feel fairly safe about calling that the first 2 days of the last week of school, so the 19th and 20th will be full days, with the remainder of the week being half days this year. And then understanding that it's been a little confusing, we understand in terms of the communication, that we talked about them being half days, that would become full days, that would become half days again if we didn't use them for snow. So we're just calling them full days next year, understanding that inclement weather, due particularly to snow, may allow those to be converted to half days. And again, it will be about this time, hopefully next year, that we'll be able to make that call to be able to give parents advance notice of that issue. So again, all this will be clearly spelled out Just as a reminder, I know there's been a lot of changes through this calendaring process. We want to be really clear. We want both staff and parents to be able to plan accordingly. So thank you for the indulgence on the time, and
Okay, thank you.
with the adoption of the calendar, hopefully that will put things to bed.
Hope so.